Good morning, everyone. This is a Butte LAFCo Agency Formation Commission regular meeting. This is Thursday, April 6th, 2023. Let's do the flag salute. I think it's a good idea. Ready, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag. One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yes. Okay, please call the roll.
Commissioner Bolin,
Here.
Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Kimmelshoe, Chair Connolly,
Here.
Commissioner McGreehan, Jarman, Commissioner Betts,
Here.
alternate Commissioner Don Russ, alternate Commissioner Larry Bradley, alternate Commissioner Tammy Ritter, alternate Commissioner Bo Shepherd. Thank you.
All right, good. First on our agenda is a consent agenda. That's an approval of the minutes from March 2nd. Are there any errors or omissions? Any electronic comment on that? Any? Move approval.
I'll second.
You guys are getting trained up now. Please call the roll.
Commissioner
guess-
Bolin,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Chair Connolly.
Aye.
Commissioner McGreehan,
Aye.
Commissioner Betts,
Aye.
Commissioner Bradley.
Aye.
Thank you.
Next up, public comment on items not on the agenda. Mr. Stonebreaker, do you wish to speak? Good morning. There you go. You're good when it's off. There you-
Okay, good morning. So I am John Stonebreaker. I'm representing the Upper Ridge Community Council. We formed in December of 2018, the immediate aftermath of the Camp Fire, to begin to address the many unmet needs within and above the fire that no level of government had been addressing. Last week, the county finally took an important step by formally adopting the Upper Ridge Community Plan that we helped drive forward. There are many items where the county will be instructed to partner with us, the Upper Ridge Community Council, in implementing many of these actions. But we understand the county has limited funds given the tremendous loss in tax base in the unincorporated area due to the Camp Fire, the North Complex Fire, and the many annexations into the cities. So it is possible that we might have to form some sort of self-government entity, either to tax ourselves or to be able to receive grants from federal and state agencies to be able to implement some of the actions that the county is unable to fund. So I want to put in everybody's mind that this might come on a future agenda. And I also want to say that we are both encouraged and terrified that the Paradise Municipal Service Review and Sphere of Influence Review is finally coming forward, even though the number in the executive officer's report is incorrect, that it was not November of 2023. We would like to participate in this process as the population of the unincorporated area around Paradise within its sphere of influence probably still exceeds the population within town limits. And even though town government since the Camp Fire has been very understanding that housing in Magalia is essential to the recovery of Paradise's economy, past and future town governments might not always agree with that. And it would be useful if we had some say in what portions of the unincorporated Upper Ridge remain within Paradise's sphere of influence in the future, what areas the town might actually wish to annex or extend services to. So that's what I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. As you know, it's not agendized. We cannot make comments or take action on that. Next up is reports and communication. We'll go right to the executive officer's report. Oh, yeah. Well, we don't need to do that, do we? That's a review and consideration of proposed budget. I was thinking of my own budget. I was going right by it. So. Okay, budget committee.
Yes,
Sure.
we're here to look at the proposed budget for 22 or 23-24 fiscal year. The budget committee did meet a couple weeks ago, and we talked through the budget, and it was unanimously proposed to be presented to the commission for tentative adoption pending final approval in May. The good news on the budget is it's the overall percentage increase is very small, and probably of most import to most people watching, and some of you up there, is that our contributions from our member agencies, our apportionments, as we call them, that we take in, are staying flat. So there'll be no increases as proposed in this budget to any of your apportionments to your cities or districts or to the county as the budget currently sits. So that's great news. And I want to point out that over the years, we have kept that number on average at about 3.6%. So I just emphasize that because this commission has been incredibly frugal over the years in maintaining a very tight budget. And for that reason, our budget has not fluctuated in any great way, despite the wild fluctuations in the economy. The one important thing in terms of expenditures that was approved in the budget was a 5% cost of living adjustment, which is actually less than what the Western States Index sets the cost of living adjustment at. But nonetheless, that I didn't feel anything higher than 5 would have been appropriate. So the committee looked at that and approved it again without any increases to apportionments. So as the budget sits, in like 99.9% of it looks good and it's solid, and we are well funded in terms of our needs, with the exception of one single item, and that is in your report, I refer to it as that's the costs related to our contractual services from the county. We have a contract real quickly with the county dating back to 2001 that established a relationship after we departed from the county as an agency. And just so you know, when we left in 2000, we were still county employees, but we vacated the Development Services Department and we ended up in our independent situation, but still a county department, and we were all county employees. In 2006, the commission and the county had conversations and agreed that the commission would go independent entirely and for purposes of as a public agency for transparency and for to remove any speculation about what our relationship from a political standpoint was with the county. Having said that, when we did that, we pulled out of the county and we remained a contractual services agreement with the county that was executed back in 2001 and again re-executed in 2006 and again in 2013. What this contractual agreement was meant to do was simply this, and I put, it's attached to your document, and the most important section in that whole agreement really is right in the very beginning, and it says that the county will treat us like every other county department for the purposes of implementing the contract. So reason I gave you the history was, and I kind of wrote this up in a way that was just questions in your report, so I'm just kind of going through what I've already written. But the reality is we were to remain basically as connected to the county as a department as we could, because we share GIS. We have commonality with Public Works. We have commonality with Department of Development Services. We utilize the assessor, the auditor, the county treasurer. At the time, we also allowed them to continue to run our payroll services. This was a flawless opportunity to move forward, and we did for all of these years. Now, the county has transitioned to a new program called Workday that they manage their entire county system in. I'm not going to get into the description of that because that's not my expertise. But what I can tell you is that they entered into that contract, and entering into that contract somehow left us out of the contract as a department. So we were put in on the outside of the system, meaning that now they're telling us that while all other county employees cost about $46 per pay period to process their payroll every month, every pay period, we're at $500 per employee. I cannot figure out for the life of me how we end up with those numbers. I've seen what they've said, but it talks about, it's basically 20 hours or so per employee per pay period to enter in our data. We can argue all day about whether that's right or wrong, good or bad, too much, too little, but we go back to the contract. It said we are to be treated like a department. My belief is, and I feel very strongly about this because I've been here for almost 30 years now, and I was at every one of these contracts that were cut. And for the longest time, we had this relationship where the county truly reached out and kept us as a department. This is literally the first time where we've been told, we would like to get you out of this particular area. We want to drop payroll services entirely. There's a lot of complications to that. And there's ways we might be able to do it, but we're not there yet by a long shot. Right now, they said we're going to terminate our payroll on June 26th. They're going to cut those services out of our contract. Again, I don't believe that the county staff can do that independently. I don't think that's their purview. I think the Board of Supervisors entered into the contract. In fact, at the time, Mr. Connolly signed the contract on behalf of the board. And the commission also signed it. And at that time, it was Carl Leverins who signed the contracts. I can tell you right now, Carl's up there looking down. He's not too happy about this particular outcome, but we've always been very cordial with this relationship. And then suddenly county staff decides they're going to cut that out. I think that's a board action. That's not a county administrative staff action. That's a fundamental change to the construction of the contract. We have the ability in the contract to debate individual cost items, but I don't believe they have the ability in the contract to just cut the service at the administrative level. I think that requires a board action. Mr. Brown can weigh into that a little further. So upshot of the whole thing is we have been paying about $13,000 a year for all these years, probably higher than what the county staff was paying, but a reasonable amount of money to do what we needed to do. But I also need to remind you all that for those of you who come from, well, nobody does actually come from that small of an agency. I think Al's agency has more employees. But we have 4 folks. And one of them is now a temporary help employee because she retired and she came back to help us through a few things to get. So we basically have 3 employees. To take on the burden of doing all that additional work would be a big, big effort on the part of, and we would probably have to hire somebody, at least a half-time person to do it. In the meantime, if we were honored by the contract, our process would continue to work flawlessly through the county. The employee's future in terms of PERS and healthcare benefits and all of those things would stay intact. So really, again, this comes down to costs, and it comes down to why it ended up being more. And the legitimate answer is, had we been included as a department in Workday back in 2019, when they first started to roll it out, we would not be here today having this conversation. We did not do that. You did not do that. That was something that the county implemented, which is their prerogative to change systems. But when you have a contract with an agency to provide a service at a fixed cost under certain circumstances, and then you change something on your end, does that automatically mean that your contracted agency or the person you've contracted with suddenly becomes burdened by that same decision that's outside the contract? I think most of you would agree. If you get an estimate and you have a contract with somebody to do work on your house and they come back and say, we got the square footage measured wrong and we're sorry, it's going to cost you more, you'd probably have something to say to that contractor. So today, what I want to do is 2 things. We have $13,000 in costs in our contractual agreement right now with the county for HR services. We have budgeted $27,000 because I was willing to compromise and say, I'll go as far as doubling our contribution, just be a good player. But that wasn't enough. They want $52,000. We do not have that $52,000 in the budget today. If it turns out we have to figure something out, we have reserves, but that's not really what they were intended for. So if the cost of HR services continues to go up or ultimately is determined to be $52,000, that means all of our apportionments for all of our agencies, all of your agencies, will go up accordingly based on that same amount of money, obviously spitting. So that would mean for $27,000 additional, the county would have to pay another $11,000. So they're going to pay $11,000 of their own $52,000 that they're charging us. So you can think about that all you want. The cities will pick up $11,000, and then the special districts will pick up about $7,000 of that cost. That's how much those apportionments would rise if we had to pick up that $27,000 additional dollars. So having said that, the budget is in front of you. I recommend that you adopt and approve today and move on to the final hearing in May. In the meantime, this is sort of a parallel issue. It's important. I don't want it to slow the budget process down because we want to keep on target for our dates for budget adoption, but we still have this issue with the county. I will follow up with one more thing. The committee had asked me to reach out to both Supervisor Connolly and Supervisor Kimmelshue. And I did. We met and we had a good conversation. If Mr. Connolly wants to share more of that, he's welcome to. But that conversation was not much different than the one I'm just having with you right now. And the outcome of that conversation was there was an acknowledgement that Workday has become a super huge problem for the county. It's not just us, it's every county department. Having said that, we didn't cause the problem and everybody's fighting through it. And I think everybody might acknowledge that Workday could have been done differently. But nonetheless, I offered to put $27,000 in the budget to make up some of that gap while we work towards a solution to get Workday, to get us back in the front end of it, if you will, so that we're treated like every other department. So that's where we are today. And I think, so I would ask for you to do two things. One, take an action on the approval of the current budget that were proposed. And then we can have a discussion more about what you want to do future with the county and the contract. So with that, I'm going to stop and I'll ask any of the budget committee members if they have anything they would like to add that I might have missed or mischaracterized.
Could you please add, since we have the presence of our legal counsel here, committee asked you whether or not the legal counsel's opinion about our contract was sound and that we have a solid standing. And I'd like to share that with the full commission.
There you go. Yes, Steve and I, of course, have consulted all the way along on this, and our contract is very clear that we have to be treated the same as any other county department, and that does not appear to be the case. So we believe that an attempt to alter the contract unilaterally is inappropriate. If the county wants the only thing they can do is terminate the contract, which they have to do with proper notice. And then then we'll have to find other sources for all of the services that we now obtain from them, many of which the county agencies are very happy to provide. GIS, for example, they're very helpful in cooperating. But unfortunately, we're in a situation where we have some people at the county level who feel that they don't have to comply with the terms of the contract as written.
Any other comments?
I don't have a comment, but I guess I'm baffled.
You are.
Well, I mean, the stuff doesn't just happen and they can't just make decisions. I know in our town, people can't just make decisions without the council having input into that. I'm just lost on that. This sounds so weird to me. I just don't understand.
Okay, so the little bit of background with my county hat on. Planned obsolescence is part of programming, right? And so the program we had was inadequate. Like if you added a boot allowance, it had to be added in manually and all that. And so they went out looking for a new way of keeping track of up to 2,700 employees. Makes sense. They came up with Workday and it came highly recommended. And I don't remember, I think it's a couple $1 million or so. 10 million. Really? And then when they rolled it out, there's been nothing but problems. So I've heard two different stories on that. One, you should take 3 years to implement a complex program like this. And we're trying to do it in 1 year. And two, I was assured early on that Workday could include LAFCo in the future. And I think Mr. Lucas was told the same thing, that Workday would work us in there with my LAFCO hat on. And then speaking with staff, they're saying, no, we have to manually enter all this, and they're not responsive. They're not going to do it. And they don't believe at the county that the county should absorb these higher costs. And then it's complicated as we've given everybody substantial raises after a dozen years were warranted, but that means they have less people to do work. So Workday is supposed to make things everybody's job easier. So far, it's been more complicated, and the staff believes that these costs should be not borne by the county, but by LAFCo. So I think it has to come to the board. There'll have to be a compelling argument to the board that this is not LAFCO's fault. And what's surprising to me is actually the county will pay like 25,000 of this total if they do pass it on, and then every town the town, the cities, and the special districts will bear the rest of the cost. I think it's reasonable to wait a year. That's how I feel individually. I can't speak for another board member. And I think that's like an olive branch to offer the extra money, but I'm only one board member, just like you're only one town council member, city council. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So. Yeah, so I have a fiduciary duty to the county, but I think a letter from Mr. Brown to the county emphasizing what's legally stated in our contract and how this is a breach of contract might get somebody's attention if the board's so inclined to do that, or commission, I mean.
My strong sense is that no one in the county administration has consulted with county council.
So I think a strongly worded letter, if I hit some head nods here, to do that.
If I may, I'd like to add one other thing from
Go
the,
ahead,
from the
please.
committee standpoint, when we discussed this process, we were also enlightened by our executive officer that BCAG's in a similar situation. with
This I did not know.
And that's shocking too, because I don't know if they have a contractual arrangement like LAFCo does, but if they do, we're talking about the same pass-through of cost to member agencies that are on BCAG. So this is bigger than just us in some respects, but I just think that's worth sharing with everybody.
Mr. McGree, and if I might, real quick, I just yesterday on a phone call learned it in the afternoon that apparently BCAG had been notified of this problem. They were in our same boat, using the same process basically, but they were convinced or they were cajoled or they agreed. Can't answer what the question was, but they apparently, I'm told, are going to transfer to a private payroll provider. Having said that, here's
they
the
have
difference. They have an entire finance department.
Right, much bigger stuff.
I have a clerk
Huge.
and an analyst and me. So they could absorb the extra effort it takes to do that. And they also have a very, very complicated budget compared to our budget, as I'm sure Supervisor Connolly and you
Yeah, I'm chair of BCAG, so there you go. Yeah, it's much more complicated.
They are deep, deep into finance at BK. That's not what we do. I would literally have to either train one of my staff to do more, or I'd have to hire somebody to do it. As opposed to what we do now, which is enter information into Workday. And this is also a part that is, I didn't really emphasize, but with Workday, there's a ton of burden still on our end to enter information in, use the program to enter in hours for work every week and so forth, time off, all that stuff, payments. We utilize Workday for all of those things because we utilize the county auditor and the county treasurer. As many of you might, well, special districts especially might also be doing. So the burden of Workday didn't just stop at the county buildings, if you will. The burden of Workday has transferred to anybody who has to interact with the county through its financial system. This is not to say anything bad about Workday or the county's choice of Workday. It's just that, as Bill pointed out, there's this complicated rollout process and it's not gone very smoothly. We were told at Christmas, just before Christmas of 2019, that, oh, guess what? At the end of the year, we're going to terminate payroll services. We're switching over to Workday and we have no way to process you. That was news to me. That was the first I had heard that we were going to be caught up in this Workday problem. Having said that, at the time, we worked that through with county staff amicably, and we continued in their payroll system with the idea that we would work towards a conclusion of how do we fix Workday. I think Mr. Connolly has mentioned many times to his staff about, well, we need to find a fix to Workday. So I think his suggestion where he indicates we adopt this budget, we can give the county up to $27,000 willingly, and give us some time, a year perhaps, to figure out if Workday can be in any way modified to put us back in as a department the way we were intended to be from the beginning. That to me seems like a fair solution. And in the process, the county drops their administrative demand that they will remove HR services, again, which I don't think they can do independently, that has to go through the Board of Supervisors. Having said that, I want to say this sort of as an overall umbrella. We have worked fabulously, and Mr. Betts can attest to this from all his time here, but since we left the County Department of Development Services in 2000, literally till today, we've had a wonderful relationship with the county. We help the county on any number of matters on a regular basis for which we don't charge, and we shouldn't, because we have this collegial agency to agency relationship. And this whole thing just sort of torpedoes that whole idea that we're all in this together because and that's very disturbing to me as a 30-year. I think working for this commission, I've always encouraged the commission, and you have encouraged me to continue to keep all these relationships active and fruitful. And we met with GIS just last week, or this week, excuse me. Worked out a great new approach to how we're going to do our web mapping and our things and our web internet presence. Why is that so important? I bring up because the county benefits from our information just as much as we benefit from the use of their platform. More of our information stays on their platform, the better the public is, because more information is available out there on the internet. So we're not talking about removing GIS services right now, but our relationship with them is strong. And that's the kind of relationship I try to maintain with all the county departments. So this was really a shocker when it came out that they were going to just unilaterally change this component, which frankly fundamentally affects us as employees and my employees. It's my obligation to make sure they're taken care of legitimately. And I think right now there's concern that somehow we're going to get dropped out of the payroll system. We're going to that's going to complicate our purge relationship, and it's going to cause problems with our health insurance, which is huge, as you all know. So I don't take this lightly. And if I sound a little aggressive or angry, at times I am that way, but I don't want that to overshadow the overall relationship I've had with the CAO and other staff members who we've worked closely with on issues like library and fire services and others. So I want to just make that as a clear. We don't want to go to battle with the county over this. We just think there's a contract that should have avoided all of this.
Well, maybe we need to directly write a letter to Workday too, because to me, they're not performing. As you know, both hats on, they're just not performing.
Yeah, and you'd know
It's
more.
supposed to be better and more streamlined and easier, and we're kicking people out, and they've assured you that's something you didn't cover. They assured you they could fix it. Workday.
I inquired with Workday to the best I could. Again, I'm not an expert in any of these proprietary systems, but when I explained the problem, I was clearly told by a senior management person there that it is entirely possible that we could be entered into the system in a way similar to the way all county employees were entered in. The county seems to indicate that's not coming to fruition with Workday. I don't know I can't tell you what the rub is. I can't tell you why Workday won't help the county get past this problem, or I don't know if the county's asking the right questions. I'm just not sure. I'm not involved in it.
Well, I'm just one vote too, and I agree with you. I think we need to have a letter to them. I mean, we got to express to them our concerns and where we stand with this. So that's one, and I'm just, like I said, one vote out of this commission. But the other thing too is there a way of tying in with BCAG and working with them on those services?
Oh,
Where
there you
we're tied in.
It's possible. And one of the things that I was asked to do by Supervisor Kimmelshoe was to reach out to BCAG and also reach out to county staff once again to try to look at those options. I'm not opposed to any of those options. If it costs us less and it doesn't compromise the benefits and our ability to maintain our health insurance, then great. If there's a better way, let's do it. But right now, I don't see a better way. And yet there's the guillotine of the county's letters just sitting up there waiting to drop. And I just think that's entirely inappropriate relationship between two public entities who work so closely together. This is not the way this should have gone.
Exactly. And I totally agree with that. But I mean, it is what it is right now.
Yeah.
So let's get the letter out and see if that works any good. If not, let's talk to BCAG and just see if there's some joint effort we can make on those benefits and payroll. I don't know.
Good thought.
That's a good suggestion. Any other?
If I might weigh in a little bit, we've had a transition in the city of Gridley from our system, original system, mom system, into Tyler system, which was, a 2-year thing, which is now going on 4 years, 3 years. And it was pretty tough. And I'm not mistaken, same thing with mosquito abatement. We went into a new system, it's great. It's a good system that they have now, but there was a learning curve and it took 2 or 3 years with issues. It's always sold as this wonderful thing and how great it is. But then unfortunately, when you're in the grasps and you're in their hooks and you're in between both systems and you're transferring information, it's pretty much up to them. It's their call at that point because they have the control. Once you've entered in halfway, there's no going back. So, and I think that's what's going on here. A 1-year thing, that's probably not going to happen. It's going to be more like a 3-year thing, I believe. So, that's all I have to say.
Any other comments?
One question or comment is, do you have any contingencies if in place, or you're thinking of anything if the county does just unilaterally drop us or drop HR on that
Well,
June date?
As I indicated in the staff report, there are options. We can certainly do one of the first thing we could simply do is just budget the $52,000, pass the costs on and keep the program. I'm not sure the county at this point will even accept that. Interestingly enough, they gave me the larger numbers and as if there they are, and then turned around and said, well, we just want to drop the service altogether. I really honestly believe they simply just do not want to do it anymore. $52,000 or not. And that's unfortunate, but so that's one option. The other option is to drop the budget as I proposed it today. We have reserves that we have been building over the years as a part of that program. We're not anywhere near our final number, but I can find $27,000 in the budget, and I would just put it in the budget next year to recover it back as a cost. So that's a contingency. But to get to your real point is, if they just suddenly just said 26th of June, drop dead date, you're out, I'd have to hustle right now to get some sort of a system in place. And frankly, with all that we have on our plate for actual projects, and I don't have a designated finance person, I don't know that we could meet that deadline, which is why I really appreciate Supervisor Connolly's suggestion that we at least get additional year from the county to try to work through the problem and see if Workday can actually develop a fix that removes the excessive amount of time that they have to use to enter in our stuff individually. I think there has to be a fix. It can't be this hard to fix it. So if we got an extra year, Mr. Betts, I think we could probably work towards a solution. And if we couldn't with the county east within that year, then I'd have chances to reach out to Mr. Clark over at BCAG and talk to some other folks who are currently using other systems and come back with a more coordinated approach. Still, though, we have a contractual arrangement with the county, and even if HR comes out, the contractual arrangement is going to stay in place. I just want to make sure about that. But what does concern me is if it's HR now and administration decides that's one service they don't want to do, when do I get another letter from somebody at the county that says, oh, we don't want you in the county treasury anymore, or we don't want you to use GIS services anymore? I don't think that's going to happen, but I didn't think this would happen. So I'm concerned because, as you know, most of you have known me for a while, and I've been here a long time. I want to cooperatively work and make this the best agency it can be. And I don't want to fight with the county over this or any other issue. And it's disappointing that this had to come to this.
Can I pose a question? You want us to entertain two actions primarily today. And I think we need to hear from the public first before we take either action.
Right.
But my big question is relative to the budget. Historically, we do a tentative budget on this meeting date, and then oftentimes we entertain the final budget, usually in the May meeting. But legally, we're not obligated necessarily to adopt it in May. If we have to, we could adopt it as June, could we not?
We can go as late as June 15th.
That's what I thought. And with that in mind, what I'm thinking is that after we hear from the public, we adopt the tentative budget, but we don't obligate ourselves to adopt it in May. In other words, we're waiting, and I'm assuming that the second action is going to entail some direction to staff to craft these letters we've been talking about, and try to see if we can get the board to be heard with their staff on this matter in a timely manner, so that we'll have some semblance of a response from the county, hopefully before our May meeting, but I don't think they can move that quickly, but preferably before our June meeting. And then we'll know what to do as far as the other options that we discussed, if that's part of the overall direction we give you.
Okay. Any other public comment? Anyone from public like to speak on this? Any electronic public comment? I'll close public comment. Now it's wishes of the board. Al?
Well, Mr. Chair.
That's called delegation.
Okay. Well, Mr. Chair, I move that the commission adopt the tentative budget as recommended by staff. With, I think it's option number 3, is that correct, Steve, that talks about the 27,000 being in the budget?
I'll just run through those real quick and then
Oh.
you can, so we received comments from the public. We continue to place this language in the budget. It talks about our ongoing need to potentially raise it. These are the points leading up to the recommendation. You would be approving a 5-year, 5% cost of living adjustment. So the actual motion, Mr. McGrean, would be number 4, which would be adopt the proposed 2023-24 LAFCo budget as shown in attachment 1, budgeting 27,000 for human resources, payroll services. Should the discussions with the county fail to change the trajectory of this cost issue, LAFCO would be able to borrow from reserves in 23-24 and recover this cost in 24-25. And then, of course, continue the item open until May 4th, which you indicated we could also then continue to the June meeting.
Right.
So that's not really relevant. So the number 4 item would be the one that would be the motion, if that's comfortable.
So actually, you probably want the first 4 items to be all part of this singular motion.
Fair enough.
All right, that's my motion. Everybody with me on that page? The staff report.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Boland,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Chair Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner McGreehan,
Aye.
Commissioner Betts,
Aye.
Commissioner Bradley.
Aye.
Thank you.
Can I just say before we go further, as far as Paradise goes, we don't have in our budget to have a big raise in costs and stuff like that. I mean, we're we're tight. And I'm sure the other jurisdictions don't either. So I mean, this is something that I don't really want to see in our budget coming forward. So anything we can do to help us out, and the rest of the cities too, I'd appreciate that. I know they would too. So.
So I think it would be, maybe if we all go back to our jurisdictions, meaning all of you again, and you write a letter to that effect to the county, because it seems to me, it should be on contingency. It's an unknown thing. It came up and the county should absorb it. And I'll argue that. I'm only 1 of 5.
Right, right.
I could use a little backup on that.
Yes, I can get that out to all of you and you can share it with your own staffs. And I'll design one for each agency.
Okay, then
Hmm.
put that horse away, right? All right.
So the letters, is it coming from the commission or?
Yeah, I think if I understood you, Bo, correctly, is that Mr. Brown and I would prepare one coming from the commission with
Okay.
our very serious concerns. And I think what Mr. Connolly was suggesting that I also perhaps provide you a sample letter for each of your
Oh,
agencies.
okay,
They can also go to support him when he's in front of the board or sitting on the board of
Right.
supervisors.
Okay,
And I will draft one for each of you with your information on it, with some simple language. And you can
Yeah, bullet-
modify it or not send it.
Bullet points or something
Yeah.
that we can make sure we.
I'm happy to do that.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to reports and communication, exec,
is that a motion? Is that a motion or is that just direction only?
I just direction because
Good enough. We need a motion on it.
Don't,
Direction, fine enough. For the letters.
Well, why not do a motion, just a voice vote
Right.
motion on
all
that?
right,
but we also haven't continued the budget yet either to a dates certain. My motion was only the first 4 of the 5 listed in the staff report.
Okay, well, it won't matter. I mean, it's scheduled for May. It'll just be on the agenda. If it's not resolved, it'll just be continued to June. Does
yeah,
that
we
make
don't
sense?
need a motion on that, but if somebody wants to make a motion and a staff draft a sample letter.
Yeah, I'll make that motion, please, but get that out and then get it out to the cities also.
And I'll second.
Okay, and all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? All right. Now, 3rd time, executive officers report.
I'll try to do this fairly quickly. The Special District Commissioner Shaman's term ends May 31st. We're currently in the ballot process for that. Ballots are due back Friday, May 5th. Right now, we have about 11 or 12 ballots returned, and we need to hit 20 to get our magic number up for a quorum. The audit is underway. This is an interesting thing because it does kind of relate back to the workday question, unfortunately. Is we have had the same auditor doing our audits for the last 5 or 6 years. And they've all gone fairly smoothly. This is the first year we're doing an audit that's fully vested with workday issues. Our auditor is having just a nightmare working with various individuals to get information necessary to access workday documents. And she doesn't just do us. She also does audits for other special districts and other agencies. And I'm told has the same kind of issues. So that's our audit is now that we usually end up bringing to you in February or March at the latest. It's probably now going to be obviously May. And it's by and large due to the complications and the issues related to her having to now deal with workday stuff. So again, this isn't just workday affects the county. They made a choice, and by that choice, we all then have to kind of play by those rules, which is fine. Those rules are just tough right now to figure out. But our audit is on its way.
On that matter, is she charging additional, or is it a set contract, or is she billing by the hours?
It's time and materials.
So it sounds like it's
and she
more-
did warn us that when she figured some of this workday problems, that we probably would end up with a few dollars more in cost. So we pay about $7,000 annually for our audit, which is about average for a lot of small agencies. And she said that could go up a thousand or two based on the complications she's experiencing with workday. It's just a lot more hours of her time now she has to use to figure out where, and this comes back to what Mr. Conley said, it's still a work in progress. It's still being implemented. So not everything is available that is necessarily needed. And some people haven't even figured out some of those components. I don't want to get back into that issue, but our audit's on its way. I'm absolutely confident our audit's going to come out just as good as it's done every year. Show that we manage our money very appropriately. Some of you, most of you, I know is going to send out an email, but I'm going to make a public recognition of our two girls here. The past month, I told, as I shared with all, we had a homeless individual come into our office early in the morning, harassed our staff a little bit. I don't want them to have to retell the story, but the bottom line was the person started a fire in our conference room. Shannon and Crystal acted very.
Why were they cold or something?
They put something in a toaster oven and then it caught fire. I don't know if he did it on purpose. We didn't see that. They walked in and saw 3-foot flames shooting out of the toaster oven up under the wood cabinets, and they could have ran out of the building. They did not. They actually called 911. Shannon grabbed a fire extinguisher and put on her fire hat and put the fire out. So I just want to take a minute just to honor them. Employees they could have left, and they did. So my advice to you is keep an eye on your doors and don't let strange people walk through your buildings.
And if we have fires, I know who to call.
Got it. I'm gonna get her an honorary CAL FIRE badge.
Well, I think next time there's a fire, throw the workday file in there.
We'll send that gentleman over to your office. Getting past that, going to projects, I'm just going to cover a couple of these really quick. There's only one that's really new, and this is broadband services. We were contacted by the county staff, administrative staff, as well as the city manager at City of Chico. The county and the city are looking at developing through grant monies a broadband network, primarily in the unincorporated areas of the county. But it's our role in that was, do we have a role? And so as it's currently moving forward, it appears as though what they want to do would be exempt from any LAFCo review, because the county and the city are going to be partners on it. And there's an exemption for such a thing under service extensions. It need not be complicated, but at this point, we're just here to help support their process and try to reduce as much regulatory process on our end. And right now, I think we can get to a place where it doesn't even have to come in front of the commission. Again, I can't help but say that this is another one of those things where we work closely with admin and we're there to help and try to do everything we can to make things work. So on the back end, this human HR stuff just keeps hanging there over my head. County libraries, Paradise Sewer, county libraries, we're still having some discussions about the Paradise Sewer project. Mr. Boland knows this all too well, but we've received the application from the city of Chico, who is technically the applicant because they're extending their services to Paradise. Of course, Paradise is completely on board. We have the application where we need a few little things to clean it up to make it complete. We hope to have it on your agenda by June. I don't think we can get it to you in May, just timing's too tight. And we also want to publicly notice this, not because we're legally required to do so, but because it's been such a major issue that it feels right to, we should put that public notice out as well. So having said that, you're going to get that coming to you probably in June. I can tell you that the application is very thorough. I mean, this city of Chico and the town of Paradise, their staffs did a remarkably good job of making it as clear as a process as possible. So I think we'll get there, and I don't want to prejudge it, but at this point, I don't see anything that's a particular red flag for us. I will only say that you all probably all know Valley's Edge was effectively, I don't know if that's a verb, referended. They got enough signatures, obviously, to cause the city council to make a choice to either vacate the project, terminate its approval, wait a year, maybe look at it again, or to just send it to a election. The only reason I'm telling you that is now the chances of us getting this as an annexation application is probably just pushed way down the road. Other than that, I don't have any other particular updates that are new. So if you have any questions of me about anything, including the EO report, have at it.
You should touch on what's going on at state LAFCo.
Oh, you want to cover that, Bill? As you're the
I'll go
El Jefe?
Go ahead, especially on legislature. They're in session, they're dangerous.
Yeah.
So we continue, just real quickly then on that matter, we continue to work on indemnification agreements. Mr. Brown has been principal author on some of these language, but we've so far been unable to find a legislative author to carry the bill. There's a lot of issues at play for some people, but the reality is every other public agency gets to indemnify itself against these types of things. And LAFCo, for whatever reason, is never in any of those codes been specifically called out. And that's what we're trying to do, is just put some simple legislation in that says we too can be indemnified. And it can be a requirement, no different than any of your agencies currently can do. But as Bill pointed out, it's a process, and you got to find somebody. And we tried on our end to find a local carrier, but we were unable. But I'll keep reporting back. The other issue deals with service extensions in general. I probably will be talking this until I'm done. But we just want to make it very clear that it's LAFCO's choice and determination as to whether 56133, the service extension law, applies or does not apply to any particular project. You can't self-exempt. If we could all self-exempt, wouldn't that be wonderful? Because I wouldn't have put it in my taxes this year. But nonetheless, there are people who want to hold on to that because they have been told by attorneys that, well, there's weak language there and we can push it. And if they don't sue us, we're good. So that really puts LAFCO in the unfortunate position is if we really feel strongly, we have to enter into litigation. That's just ridiculous. But again, as Bill pointed out, it's the legislature, and ridiculous is right somewhere there in the listing.
Well, the good news is the special districts are now supportive of us being indemnified. So, and realities, League of Cities should be too, because we have to pass that on to them if we do lose and become sued and lose, we'd pass that on so I don't know why. The main reason our Assemblyman Gallagher is not against it. He's just not going to weigh in. I've asked him several times. They're very busy. He's now running up and down the state as a party whip or whatever. So,
and as you all vividly know, that our representatives up here in the North State don't necessarily carry many votes down there in the game.
no,
We really need a Dem person to carry this bill.
or at least cross the aisle support.
Right.
I mean, but those two issues are just hanging out there. And I'll show you on my phone who called me yesterday.
Don't show me your phone, please.
The lawyer that's using that wants me to help him with something. All right, any other comments from anybody? We're adjourned.
No, you have another item, Bill.
Oh, closed session,
You guys can use the fireside room right over here.
All right. We got to go to closed session. Will there be any report out from that, council?
Yes.
Okay, we'll report out from closed session.
Remember, they.
I've just been trying to get out of here since I got here today. Did anybody notice that? We're back from closed session, and council, do you have an announcement from closed session? I will say it was a very positive evaluation, and we thank you for your service. Thank all our staff for their service. Hope to keep you around for a while. Okay, class dismissed.